So my work is about life and death, and I do that through creating my own fantasy landscape. And it's inspired by Salvador Dali, where I use symbols and different images that I see in my head.
My work in general is just looking into some of the local issues and some of the social issues that inhibit Hong Kong, which is probably not so obvious, as Hong Kong is typically seen as a financially and economically abundant city. Yeah. So one of my artworks is called Waffle Chun. It's composed of a bird's eye view into one of the buildings in Waffle Chun, which is a public housing estate in Hong Kong. Colors are actually symbolic, where red represents the percentage of people who live in public housing in Hong Kong, and blue represents the amount of people who are living in private housing in Hong Kong.
My overall theme is nature and growth, and one of my artworks is called The Dying Bird, and it is a three-dimensional sculpture made with paper mache and newspaper. And my artwork is about a bird that is hollow in the middle because it's dying, and it is inspired by Barbara Hepworth.
So one of my art pieces is inspired between the contrast between East and West culture, because my theme is cultural identity. So I'm exploring sort of the different cultural elements that show the cultural differences, and also sort of the balance between that. And personally, because I'm Canadian, but I was born in Hong Kong, it's quite personal to me, and it's something that I've always thought about, because growing up in an international school, it's something that we experience, both East and West cultures. So I just wanted to show that in my artwork.
My work is about identity. That is my main theme for IB art, and throughout my work I explore different aspects of my identity, whether that be through hobbies and what is important to me and what I value and believe with regards to body image and kind of this feminine aspect of my identity.
Work is a spirit in a vessel, and basically what it's inspired by the surrealist movement and Dali, because since Dali in his work he usually depicts this setting or like landscape that's not really set in reality, because whole like one of surrealism's goals was to study the subconsciousness. So, but except in my work, rather than studying the subconsciousness, I also depict this fantastical landscape that explores identity and the self, because like subconsciousness is sort of a space for the self. And in my painting, I depict how the body is a vessel for the spiritual self, rather than the more specifically the subconsciousness. I don't depict the subconscious consciousness, but I depict the self as a spiritual whole.
Yeah, so the current piece I'm working on is a painting of my room that I took during online learning a couple of weeks ago. And my main theme is sort of looking at isolation and figures in isolation, but also just environments that are isolated. And it tied in really well with obviously the coronavirus pandemic, because suddenly we were all isolated to certain areas in our houses or apartments. So for me, that was my room, where I had to do my art in my room, classes in my room, homework in my room, and that became my sort of world for a long time. And to a certain extent, it still is. So with this piece, I've been primarily inspired by Giacometti's paintings, which he's not as well known for, but they retain this sort of isolated quality in that they're very sketchy and ambiguous, but also through all of his lines and manipulations of the paint, there is a sort of very detailed sense of the space. And that's what I've tried to capture in my own work.
The theme of my works is about familiar spaces, more specifically about the backstage of life. And what this means is that I explore the relationship between spaces and people and how we live in our spaces. One of my works is a triptych, and it is painted all in red. And this work basically showcases a place in my parents' bedroom at 3 different times of the day. The first one only has a closet and a hanger, and then the middle one showcases my parents putting on each other's jackets, and then the last one showcases a hanger, the same hanger, but it is mirrored from the first panel, and it is completely empty. There is no clothes on it, and there's this process that I wanted to showcase about the going and passing of people, and how and the changes in a space where all of these changes are created by us as people and how we live in our intimate spaces.